So, when is the best time to sell? I found this article very interesting and thought I would share it. The best time to sell is right around the corner. Now, believe it or not, Realtor.com and the chief economist, Danielle Hale, who is the chief economist for Realtor.com, has predicted that this week, actually 2 weeks, the week of April 13th and the week of April 19th, are the best time for sellers to put their house on the market and to sell their property. They could potentially get an average of $27,000 more. It could sell faster compared to other parts of the year. Danielle had talked about, while there are tariffs and inflation that continues to be a concern and somewhat dampens buyer confidence, the seasonal aspect of the spring market is still a very strong factor. And this is kind of the reason why this time period is so effective for selling real estate. And of course, this is nationwide. But this time period, April 13th and the week of April 20th, expect to get above average pricing. Historically, the median listing price is 1.1% higher than the average week throughout the year, 6.7% higher than the start of the year. And listing price during this week could reach 4,800 above the average week and as much as 27,000 over the start of the year. So average price is a little bit higher, quicker time on market. Historically, home sale activity during this week sold roughly 9 days faster than the average week. And looking at a above average buyer demand, more buyers are looking at homes during this period of time. And historically, this week has garnered 17.7% more views per listings than the typical week. Now, mortgage rates are still in the sixes. That's the highest it's been in 2 years. And so that's admittedly a challenge. But buyers have been sitting on the fence for 2 years. Interest rates have been in this range for the past 2 years. And the expectation is people are going to get tired of sitting on the fence. They're going to start to adjust to the fact that interest rates are going to be in that 6% range. The affordability crisis was brought in because interest rates were high and prices were high. We're beginning to see nationwide stabilizing and prices not going up, in some cases going down. But the supply and demand aspect of things, the supply has greatly increased. And when I say greatly increased, if you were in any of my presentations during the awards program, you'll note that I pointed out that while we're higher in inventory than we were a year ago, compared to earlier years, 2019, we're about the same. So not in a crisis, but the inventory is going up. And what we know is when inventory goes up, prices get a little more affordable because there's more choices and it's easier for buyers to make decisions because they have more things to choose from and can be more competitive. So the good things that we're looking forward to, yes, the spring market, which is not our high season we're in right now, but going into the spring market, even mentally for us in Florida, I think is a positive. If people can sell their houses in other markets, they're going to be moving here to Florida. We continue to see the influx in the Florida real estate. And so we expect still good things ahead. I know some of you are getting a little nervous because you see inventory going up so much and you get concerned, but keep in mind that the inventory going up puts us in a similar market to what we've been used to years before the craziness has taken place. So not a reason for panic, just a reason to get back to doing the marketing things that we used to always do to have to sell a house. We didn't have it where houses were flying off the shelves. And so we're back into that market, more of what we might call a normal market we're experiencing right now. But it requires us to be on the top of our game. It requires us to do marketing, to be proactive, to be doing open houses. I am seeing more open houses everywhere I go and look. And keep in mind that we put together that list. It's in the resource center. You can email Karen Cox as well, and she can add you to that list if you're willing to sit open houses for others of other agents in our company, or if you have open houses that you would like to have sat by other agents in our company. So keep focused on the open houses and keep working on that. But looking forward to spring market, that April 13th and the week of the 19th. Let's see how it plays out and if Realtor.com is right on the money or not. 2 weeks ago, Roger and I were not here because we were at what Florida Realtors calls GARD, Great American Realtor Days. And Florida Realtors and the real estate community has been very effective in lobbying our legislators. While we were there at GARD, there were about 1,000 realtors from the state of Florida that were there to lobby the legislators from their local areas. Legislators that we talked to said, you guys really make a difference. When the realtors come to town, we listen. And they did with a lot of the different meetings. So I want to give you kind of what's on the agenda for this legislative session. There were like 1,800 bills that have been filed. So obviously, I'm only going to look at some of the ones that will affect the real estate industry. And there's about 15 or so that I want to look at. The first is affordable housing. There are two bills, a House and a Senate bill, that will require local governments to allow accessory dwelling units. There's been a big focus on accessory dwelling units in the last couple of years, and there's been some resistance in some municipalities to allow a second unit. In some marketplaces, such as ours, you are limited to being able to rent out an ADU. It's based on whether you live in one of the units, either the primary or the ADU. But this legislation is going to move away from that requirement. There are actually two that we'll look at. This House bill has passed the first committee, and in the Senate, it's already passed the second committee and is moving forward for a vote. The next bill on housing is, again, a reform to address affordable housing, providing tax exemptions and eligibility to induce more tax credits, targeting housing development and redevelopment. These bills are both waiting to be heard right now. And then the real property and land use development, this is going to expand some of the Live Local Act in creating affordability by allowing sites that are owned by religious institutions to be developed, and for promoting, again, accessory dwelling units in all areas of single-family homes. We believe this is a positive in helping affordability. This is waiting to be heard in committees right now. Next is the establishment or the creation of a trust fund. My Safe Florida Home Trust Fund would be created to create money for the My Safe Florida program. I'll talk about what is in Governor DeSantis's budget for this in a later slide. But this trust fund would help perpetuate the My Safe Florida Home program, which has been hugely popular. It has been also introduced to the My Safe Florida condominium program that was put into place last year to help condominiums that are at least 3 stories high with residential unit owner approval to get grants to help meet some of the issues that they're dealing with. And that was hugely popular. The funds were used up very quickly in that program as it was rolled out. So this bill has already passed, unanimously passed its first committee and is on to its second committee. The emergencies is regarding the look back period. We have gone through a period of time of multiple hurricanes, and in some municipalities, thankfully not in most of our local marketplaces, there is no look back period of time. The look back period simply is that if you were damaged and you were subject to the 50% rule, and let's say your 50% amount would allow you to renovate $120,000. If the municipality had a 5-year look back period, which Lee County did a while back when the hurricane hit there, a 5-year look back period, if you pulled any permits during that 5-year period, if you had $120,000 that you could spend on renovating your house, limited by the 50% rule, if you pulled permits for new roof, new windows, and new doors, and that accounted for $60,000 within the last 5 years, your $120,000 would be reduced to $60,000 is all you could use to renovate. And that hampered people dramatically. So Florida Realtors took up the challenge when we passed in public policy a motion that we would support moving the look back period to no longer than 1 year. And thankfully, this has been introduced in a House bill, and we'll see where this ends up going. Condominiums, we are dubbing this Condo 4.0. There's a House and a Senate companion bill for this, some changes to condominiums. People have said, with all that's going on right now with condominiums, are they going to roll back the requirements for the milestone and the SEERS, or SIRS, Structural Integrity Reserve Study? And the answer is no. What they're coming up with, though, is proposing some changes that will allow associations to approve lines of credit up to 35% of the reserves for SIRS components with a 10-year plus remaining useful life. So that's the first thing. The second, permitting board of director to levy special assessments to obtain loans without unit owner's approval to address milestone inspection and SIRS needs. And then to clarify the process and the rights regarding condominium termination. Quite frankly, some of these older condos are going to be terminated, and they're going to be torn down and give way to new condo projects. The fourth is prohibits persons who perform inspections from making the repairs. It seems somewhat self-serving. And lastly, and this is an important one, prohibits Citizens Insurance from insuring associations and where unit owners fail to meet established milestone inspection and SIRS deadlines. So that's going to be critical, because a lot of the condo complexes have looked to Citizens because the private market has dried up in many, many areas. And so if this passes, it would limit Citizens from insuring them if they're not meeting their obligations under the milestone inspections and the Structural Integrity Reserve Study. So the Senate version of this is similar, but it includes adding the meeting minutes for the preceding 12 months to the association's website, which I'm all in favor of. I think that's a great program. The next is the real property and condominium flood disclosures. It would require landlords, as well as condominium developers and cooperative developers, it would require them to give the same disclosure that we now are doing as of October 1st on residential properties. We need to give a condominium disclosure. So it will extend it, a flood disclosure. It will extend it to landlords and condominium and cooperative developers. This next one is in red because it's a negative. We would oppose this one, but this is dubbed we dubbed it the Zillow bill, but they're calling it Access to Fair and Transparent Real Estate Act, Listings Act, and it would require us to advertise or market listed properties on a publication platform or website that is broadly acceptable to the general public within 1 calendar day of the term of the listing agreement. Now we are able to pick and choose. We don't have to put it on a website. Some people choose not to put it on a website. They're asking the House and the Senate to approve these bills so that it would require us to put it on a platform such as Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, whatever. And if the seller did not want it to be there, they would have to create an opt-out. FREC would have to create an opt-out form that the seller would need to sign. So we are not in favor of this bill and are lobbying against it. The state land management, it would update how Florida manages the state lands. There was a hue and cry last year where there was talk about commercially developing some of the state lands, and so this would more lay out how they can be, and there could be no construction that would limit or that would be harmful to the parks, but could potentially allow camping cabins if they don't damage the nature. The next is the public lodging and food services establishment, making it easier for hotels and vacation rentals to remove problem guests, clarifying that these stays are temporary and setting clear removal guidelines that would allow the police to arrest and evict people without going through more of an eviction process. The private property rights extends to commercial property. Last year, they passed a bill that enabled you to remove illegal squatters from residential property. Well, commercial property, they have similar issues and problems, and they were saying, we need a bill to extend to us. So this has definitely gotten traction, probably will get approved. It's already been unanimously passed and through the final committee in the Senate and going to the Senate floor for a vote, and is moving through the House as well. The last one is delivery notices. And for rental properties, this would allow tenants, if they opt in, to receive email notices. So for evictions, you need to post it on the door. If they opted in for email notices, this would make it easier for landlords to send eviction and other types of notices to the tenant via email with proof of delivery, that it hasn't bounced back or whatever. So we are in favor of that. Now, looking at Governor DeSantis's his budget, there's some good things for the real estate community in it as he's proposing it. The first thing is he's proposing the repeal of the state's business rent tax. So let's just talk about that a second. In our visits at Tallahassee, many of the legislators think that this might be too big of a bite in one step. Over the last several years, we've reduced the business rent tax from 6%, which it was, down to 2%, which it currently is. To eradicate and get rid of even the full 2% would cost about $1.6 billion. The question is whether that can be accomplished in one bite. We're not sure yet, but in the worst case scenario, if we don't get rid of it completely, maybe reducing it to 1% this year and 1% the following year. The next thing is over $600 million for the My Safe Florida Home. We talked about creating a trust fund for it, but this would still be $600 million in this upcoming budget, $480 million of it to fund approximately 4,500 homeowners who've already completed inspections and have filed for a grant and are waiting for funding of those grants, waiting for more money. That's a huge dollar amount, but that shows you how popular this program is. Another $109 million for new applicants and new inspections, and $30 million for the condominium pilot program that we talked about. And then another $500 million for housing programs. The most significant of that is $100 million for a fourth year of the Hometown Heroes housing program, which has again been a hugely popular program to help buyers with closing cost assistance and getting into their home for the first time. So also $1.5 billion for Everglades restoration. So some good stuff in the governor's budget. The House has a budget, the Senate and the governor, and then they reconcile them to come up with a budget that will be finally approved. I want to talk about Elevate Florida. This is a disaster program that Florida has put together or come together with the federal program. And this program is going to benefit property owners. Many of you are dealing with properties that were severely damaged, and because of the 50% rule, they either have to tear it down completely and build from scratch, or they have to elevate the structure so that it is above the base flood for that area. And so this program, Elevate Florida, will help people be able to do that. Elevate the structure, mitigate reconstruction, acquire and demolish if it's for community, and help with wind mitigation. So the process, and there's information, email here and a phone number here that you can call. This goes through the stages. These slides that I have are in a flyer that you can get if you go back to this website or just put floridadisaster.org and move to the Elevate Florida part of that website. You'll be able to get this flyer and be able to help with your owners and your listings who are in the process. The beauty of this thing is there's federal funding that will cover at least 75% of the project cost. In my neighborhood, many of you know that I was flooded, and I'm in the process of renovating my house under the 50% rule. Some of my neighbors, at least one of them, is going to elevate, and the cost to elevate was $395,000. 75% of that cost can be covered by federal funding, and 25% of it needs to be covered by the owner. Now, one of the things that Florida has done in this program is that while they're working with FEMA for the funds for the 75%, they're also working with the Small Business Administration to be able to get loans up to $500,000. This was previously only available to businesses, but now to be available to homeowners so that they can cover the 25% by getting an SBA loan, and those loans are at an interest rate of 2.8%. So for owners who would like to elevate their property and get it out of flood risk danger, this program exists, and pretty much 75% of the cost can be covered by a grant, and 25% you get an SBA loan for at 2.8% interest rate. So this program is definitely worth looking at. We can't develop it all here, that's for sure, but I want to make you, just came out yesterday, St. Patty's Day, and I thought it was worth talking about this whole thing. You know, we do have a crisis with condominiums right now, but this notion of a blacklist of homeowners condominium projects by Fannie and Freddie. We've talked about this probably 6 months ago. This is not brand new news, but it has been updated in this Wall Street Journal article where many homeowners have been paralyzed because when they go to close with a new buyer who's getting a Fannie Mae mortgage, oftentimes right before closing, the lender says, no, we can't make the loan. This condominium project is on Fannie's blacklist. And Fannie doesn't consider it a blacklist. They just consider it a list of condominium projects that are at a higher risk. So many of these associations are on this list because they don't have what Fannie Mae considers proper insurance, or the property may have issues that need to be corrected, maybe milestone inspection report issues where they're structural and Fannie is not going to finance them. This list existed before the Surfside condo collapse, but it has expanded greatly since the Surfside condo collapse. There are now 5,175 condominium complexes that are on this list nationwide. Say, oh, that's not too bad nationwide. Well, when you look at how the list plays out, Florida has 1,400 of those nationwide properties, so we are the highest. California is next on the list, and we are both states that have natural disasters. California fires and earthquakes. Florida has the hurricanes. So insurance becomes extremely important, and Fannie and Freddie are looking at that, and they are trying to work through this. There are various organizations that are trying to work with Fannie and Freddie to get through these issues and get these units off of this list. But Fannie says that for them, it's an issue of making sure they protect the borrower, that they're not put in a position where if there is damage to the unit, it can't be restored because they have inadequate insurance. And a lot of that comes because condominium complexes are now trying to get insurance where it's not replacement cost, because replacement cost insurance is so expensive. It's actual cash value. Fannie and Freddie require it to be replacement cost coverage. So for this reason, we've got these challenges, and they will continue for a little bit. Lee today, when he talks about an update on insurance, he might address some of these issues with condominium complexes and the soaring rates. And that's why the private market, I said earlier, many have moved to Citizens, and that's going to be a problem if that bill passes, because if they're not dealing with their milestone inspection reports and the structural integrity reserve studies, then Citizens won't insure them either. So there's a lot yet still ahead in this market for condominiums and insurance. Want to get pretty much right on time. We had sent this out, and Lee is with us to talk about Citizens Insurance and all things that are happening within Citizens Insurance. And I know we've got 93 people on this call. Many of you are here specifically to hear what Lee has to say. So Lee, I'm going to stop sharing my presentation. And
So I can't be done yet?
what's that?
I can't be done yet. Oh,
You
we'll
can't
just
be
start.
done. You're just starting, my friend.
Thank you,
Did
thank
you want
you.
to share any kind of PowerPoint?
I will at some point. Yeah, I have a couple of things I want to put up. I did just want to add, by the way, thank you for having me and all of you for being here. But I did want to add on you covered the My Safe Florida Home program really, really well. The one thing I didn't see there, and not everyone knows about it, is there are, I think it's like 30 some odd buildings that are also sinking, commercial buildings that are sinking. And that's to be dealt with also. They got to either build them up or tear them down. So that's another problem on top
Yep.
of that. So the condo building is definitely an issue in a lot of ways. So, all right, are we ready to start?
Yep. You're ready to
All right,
go. We're right
awesome.
on.
Backbone to me, because I'm the voice you talk to. I'm the one you call and give your information to for your clients or your clients. And then Rose and Mary Angela do everything. They do the quoting, they do the binding of policies, they service the policies. They're an awesome team. They are here. So if anything comes up that I need them for any reason, or if they think of anything that I'm saying, they will pop in and probably just say something, but they are here. I did just put some information in the chat box. That is everything about me and us. We are a full service agency. Together, we have, like I said in the chat, we have over 100 years of experience. I'm at over 38. Rose and Mary Angela are each well over 30, I believe, or over 30. So we have a ton of experience and we do everything insurance. So we can do the only things we don't do, just so you know, we don't do mobile and manufactured homes by choice. We just don't want to. Too much of aggravation on our end, and we don't do health insurance. Otherwise, we can pretty much help you with everything. And just so you know, normally in most cases, our home insurance quotes are done in one day. Car insurance can be 2 days. It just depends on the number of carriers we're shopping. And we have lots and lots of insurance carriers. And of course, business and commercial take longer. So business commercial quotes do not take a day or two. They can take weeks and months. So that's definitely a whole different situation on the commercial side of the marketplace, but we are here to help you with everything. So with that being said, I know all of you want to hear some good news. So I'm here to give you some good news to start off with, and then we're going to have all the complications that are still going on in the state of Florida that are affecting all of you and your buyers and your sellers. So the good news is you've probably heard it. Home insurance prices are going to come down this year. So there's no question of that. They're going to head down. The decreases will probably start next month. Every company is going to be different based on when they do their reinsurance agreements. And David, you want me to get into the reinsurance part of the insurance? I guess I will because it's good to have. Um,
Briefly.
yeah, insurance premiums are made up of two things, basically. I mean, a lot of things, but the two main things are the insurance carrier and their results and the reinsurance carrier. So all of the Florida insurance companies are, for the most part, very small companies, do not have the wherewithal to handle a $100 million type of a storm. So they all buy that protection from larger insurance companies. They call them reinsurance companies. So just like all of you, if you have a home with a 5% hurricane deductible, you might have a $25,000 or $35,000 deductible or bigger. They also carry deductibles. They might carry a 30 or 40 or $50 million deductible or $10 million. But it's all going to be different companies, different scenarios, different sizes, and that costs them money. That cost is also going down this year, which is a shocker to me with all the things that have happened around the country and the globe, because reinsurance is global. So it's still really good news. What that tells us is that the prices of insurance have capped out. And it looks like now the question is how far and how long can they drop? So that's an unknown. The dropping this year is going to be different, varied company to company. One company we've talked to said they're going to have a 10% statewide average decrease. Now, let me explain to you what this means because it's not just a 10% decrease, it's going to vary. So, whenever there are statewide increases, let's call it 10% increase, South Florida, where we are, gets hit at double that, at 20%. The northern part of the state usually gets less in the range of 0 to 10%. So it just varies. With the decreases, it's going to be the same thing. South Florida people are going to see the biggest decreases. They will probably average 10 to 20% with that particular carrier. Other people may get 0 or 5%. But It's still really good news. Now, the one company that is not coming down in price and will continue to increase in price and the difficulty of getting insurance is Citizens Insurance, and we will talk about that. So we'll get there. I just want to let you know that Citizens Insurance prices are not coming down. So the real goal is to make sure that you and your clients don't end up in Citizens Insurance if you can avoid it, because that's really what you want to try and do, is not get into Citizens Insurance. There's just so many complications with it. If it's possible, that's what you want to try and do. So we'll come back and go through all this stuff. There are other insurance companies that are changing things also. One of our carriers has said they're going to allow people who are shopping their prices, because everyone should be shopping their prices starting this next month or as soon as they get their renewals. Probably even now is a good time, even if you don't have a renewal, because it's not hurricane season yet. So it's a good time to shop your insurance. But they're saying they're going to let 4-point inspections be up to 5 years old. Some companies may not need them until the home is 30 years old. We always recommend getting the 4-point inspection. To me, it's so valuable. But for shopping your rates when you already have a carrier, it's very, very useful to have them when they can be good for 5 years instead of 1 year like it is now. So there's lots and lots of stuff going on. Now, historically, what has caused insurance prices to go up? Well, there are two things, of course. It's always hurricane season, and the other big one has been insurance fraud and litigation. So just so all of you know, insurance fraud and litigation and how bad it is, in this country, it is second only to tax evasion. Okay. Florida still takes up 80% of the entire country's insurance fraud and litigation right here in our state. 80%. Now, the bulk of it's coming from South Florida and Tampa. Those 6 counties are pretty much picking up the worst. So we're the worst 6 counties in the country. Maybe the world, who knows? It's bad. Now, the litigation bill that was done a couple of years ago has helped, and it has worked. So I'll explain to you how it works so you understand what was happening. Back before that bill, if someone had a $60,000 water damage claim, and you went to your insurance company and you contacted a lawyer, we'll call it Morgan and Morgan, because they're billionaires now off of the insurance companies, and you got paid your $60,000, you'd be thrilled you got paid your $60,000. But the lawyer picked up $180,000 for settling your case for 60. That's where the problems with the insurance industry have come, and that was the problem they resolved. So there is no more big payouts to the lawyers. They're getting percentages, they're getting legal fees, they're getting different. So they do mediation and arbitration, so it works a little bit differently, and that has caused the premiums to come down. And that's what's doing it. So the unknown is, how long will this continue? Will it come down again next year? We won't know until we get there. It's going to be a year-by-year thing, but any kind of a break is going to be a good break. Also, there are 10 or 15 new insurance companies out there who have been created over the last couple of years, and they are primarily depopulating Citizens Insurance. And we're going to get into that when we get into Citizens Insurance as well. But that depopulation process is continuing. And I just say, I don't know if you know, David, I'm on the board of Citizens. I'm on the second level board. It's called the MAC committee, MAAC committee, where we're on public television 4 times a year. And our recommendations go to the big board. That's the political board. And they make their final decisions and do what they do. Citizens Insurance is still going to be depopulating hundreds of thousands of people out of Citizens Insurance over the next few months, and it will continue later in the year. And just so you get a little picture of Citizens Insurance, when this process started a year or 2 years ago, of the heavy depopulations for Citizens Insurance and the change of Citizens Insurance as to what it was and what it's becoming, Citizens Insurance did have close to 1.5 million policies. Yeah. We're now down below 1 million at 950 some odd thousand, and they want that number down below 500,000. And that includes the commercial. So David, you were mentioning the commercial side. You're correct. I just posted a blog on that on my LinkedIn. Citizens Insurance doesn't want the insurance. They don't want anything. Just so you all know, Citizens Insurance does not want to insure anybody. They're going to make it difficult. They're going to make it expensive. They want you to go other places. So that's just something you should just know in general. Now, also, I heard you talking about the commercial side of things and with Citizens and commercial buildings. Just so you know, the commercial marketplace works just like the surplus marketplace. So most likely, we are expecting decreases in premiums on the commercial marketplace business. with hopefully a little more availability of carriers as well. Up where you guys are, the carrier availability is pretty good. We have a lot of carriers up in your area. South Florida is much more difficult. Just the further south you go, the worse it is at getting carrier availability. Sometimes you can't get wind coverage. It's terrible. That really should change, and you guys should be in a really good situation now for pricing. Your condo buildings should be coming down in price when they renew. We're happy to look at those for you. Just give them to us 4 to 6 months in advance. Don't wait until 2 weeks because it's too late. But we're happy to review those things for you as well and work with you and your boards to try and save money on the commercial policies, because it is something that's very doable this year, for sure. Now, if there's any questions, let's see. Big money insurance companies paying off their affiliates. Chris, is that in regard to the stuff in the news? Are you talking about stuff in the news that's been out there? Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah. So that's I was going to talk about that too, and the insurance companies decline business, of course. Okay, all insurance companies don't want to make payouts. So is it Phil? I'm not sure if it's Phil. They don't like paying, but 70% of all claims that go bad are people who have chosen to have the cheapest insurance policy and don't have the coverage, but they think they should have it. That's really what happens to a lot of people. But there are people who just don't get paid. It gets difficult. Obviously, that happens. Every insurance company is guilty of it. They all try to protect their companies and so forth and so on. But most people who have claims get paid. And if you do it the right way, and I'm happy to work with anyone, if you ever claim, you can call me. We'll tell you what you need to do. And our clients all get paid. We haven't had any problems with our clients. When they're our clients, we help them because we want them to do it. And we don't want you to call 1-800 insurance company. We want you to call us directly. In regard to the other insurance companies and their affiliates, I don't think they're going to find much of anything. I think it's going to go through a bunch of committees and sit there. And I believe what is honestly happening, just so you know, all of the Florida insurance companies are owned by what is called MGAs. An MGA might also, for example, I forget the name of the MGA. They own 3 companies. They own Florida Peninsula, Edison, and Ovation Insurance. They own all 3 of them. Okay, so they're the MGAs. The MGAs are the owners. Think of it as the presidents or the CEOs of the companies. Just like every other CEO, they pocket millions and tens of millions of dollars in bonuses and salaries and payouts and perks. They do that just like every other CEO. And my guess is, and I don't know, but my guess is, Chris, that's probably what's happening here. And what they're probably going to find out is that the CEOs took their bonuses and profits before they lost them. And that's what happens. So that's just how it goes. We're going to... Okay, Jan, we're going to talk about Citizens Insurance. So let's kind of go through everything, okay? So let's talk about Citizens Insurance now, just in general. So as of December of 2023, Citizens Insurance changed everything that they were doing, and they began taking much more significant rate increases. The increases in 23 and 24, the month of December, in each case was about 14% statewide average, which means in South Florida, they were being hit for 25 to 30% or more. And up there, it was probably anywhere from 10%-ish or whatever it was. It's going to vary from person to person. And they're going to keep doing that. Citizens Insurance, when it originally came out back in the early 90s, was the insurance company of last resort. It was originally called the FRPCJUA, the Florida Residential Property and Casualty Joint Underwriting Association. Whew. Thank God they changed that name, but it was terrible. And it was the insurance company of last resort. Over the time of years when the insurance carriers were raising prices, so we had about 7 years, 8 years where insurance companies were just raising and raising prices. Citizens Insurance has to go through the boards to get their approvals, and the approvals had only been approved at like 7% statewide averages, where the other companies during those 7 years were taking 15, 20, 30% statewide average increases, and 50% down here, 100% in some cases. People's rates went skyrocketing. They doubled and tripled over those 7 years. So Citizens Insurance is basically playing catch up. They are now going to become the insurance company of last resort again. They're already there now. So basically, they don't want you. They're going to make it difficult to get them. They'll take you if you qualify, and we'll go through the qualification process because that is important that you all know that as realtors. And then they're going to make every effort to depopulate you to another carrier. Now, the oddball thing with that is we have access to these carriers they won't let us write the policy with them. But if we put it in Citizens, they'll depopulate it, which is a screwball scenario, but that's Florida. The Florida insurance place is really a difficult marketplace to follow. So it just goes along and we'll just keep working with it as best as we can. So Citizens Insurance is trying to make it difficult to get insurance for you. Okay, the price increases are there. You now, to get Citizens Insurance, not only do they depopulate, but they also have a keep out program. The keep out program works two ways. If any of you are currently in Citizens Insurance, when your policy comes up for renewal, before the renewal is posted, they shop it out themselves in the marketplace to see if another carrier is willing to take it. And then they just move you before the renewal comes. So they're just looking, like I said, to get rid of you. But let's say you come to us for a quote, and I'm just going to throw out an example. If you come to us for a quote and we have a quote for an insurance company that's $3,500 and Citizens Insurance is $3,200, I can't sell you Citizens Insurance, even though it's cheaper. It has to be 20% cheaper, apples to apples coverage, or I cannot sell it to you. And if we try to, Citizens Insurance will basically depopulate you prior to closing. They won't even take the case. They're going to do the keep up program now. That started near the end of January. So it's already now in full force in March. So the keep out program is keeping people away from Citizens Insurance. They are desperate to keep everyone away in that scenario. Now, with Citizens Insurance, I want to give you guys some examples of what homes qualify for Citizens Insurance, because if you want to get into Citizens Insurance, your home has to qualify for Citizens Insurance. So with the exception of Dade and Monroe counties, so that doesn't affect you guys, Citizens Insurance peaks out at $699,000 of coverage on a dwelling. That's as high as they go. Give or take to you, that is approximately a 2,600 square foot home under air. Once a home is bigger than 2,600 square feet, it is unlikely it's even going to qualify for Citizens Insurance in most cases, unless the inside of the home is really not well done, and then it might. But at 2,600 or so is when Citizens Insurance is no longer going to be available to you. So just so you know that. Homes that are smaller than 2,600, we can put as Citizens Insurance. Again, we always want to try to find a regular carrier for you. But it's important to know that it's available, because the issues that we find on the 4-point inspection are so many. Have you guys had issues with 4-point inspections? Is there anyone not having issues with 4-point inspections? Because out of every 10 inspections we get, 7 of them are problematic. Anyone out there?
I'm sure there are.
There's got to be.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jen, just getting back to you. Yeah, Marty. Can't hear you. You're on mute still.
I am definitely having major problems with the 4-point.
Yeah.
Cost
So
me
we're
another
gonna
$10,000 because they put totally unsatisfactory on every issue regarding the roof that was only 9 years old.
Correct. And that can happen. So we're going to cover the entire 4-point inspection. I do just want to answer Jen's question about the 55 plus communities. There's nothing that's going to happen differently now that we've kind of covered a little bit of Citizens Insurance to people in 55 plus communities. It's just going to be the same as any other policy with Citizens. They don't do that. And yeah, your clients everyone should get a 4-point inspection. There is no question of that. So I'm going to put up my screen share. I think I sent this to you. And if you guys need it, I can send it again. You guys should have this. So you might want to take a picture of this. I'm going to scroll it up for a little bit. Unless you can take it, I can send it to you as an attachment. I think you may have it already, David, and you can pass it around to the offices. But basically, I call this the 4-point inspection problem checklist. So this is going to be something we'll go through very, very carefully, and I'll keep it here with my information down the bottom. Okay, because this is where we're just seeing so many things go wrong. Now, I'm going to give you the rules on the inspections real quick. So on the wind mitigation inspection, just so you know, we always need one. They're good for 5 years. We always need one. If it's a buyer situation, the buyer has to get a new one. Can't use the sellers. We can always, the sellers are good for 5 years. Once they own the home, they're good for 5 years. Even if it's new construction, most insurance companies will still want the wind mitigation inspection. And if it's a condo, you can obviously get them free from the condo association. They'll provide it, the inspector on the homes. Okay. On the 4-point inspection, the rules are as follows. Right now, every company is requiring 20 years or more, you must have a 4-point inspection. Some insurance companies are saying they're going to go to 30 years. That's okay. I recommend you do it at 10 years. You should absolutely do these 4-point inspections, but some insurance companies are going to let it go longer if you don't want to. However, if you don't do the 4-point inspection, we're going to ask you all of these questions. And if you don't have the answers, the generic scenario is you will lie to us and just give us an answer that you think sounds good. That is called insurance fraud, so be careful. Your buyers will do the same thing. They just say stuff to just, oh, I don't want to give that information, so let's just give an answer. That's insurance fraud. Everything is documented, so be very, very careful. And just so you also know, insurance companies trust no one. They are going to inspect your property, even if you have a wind mitigation and 4-point inspection. Even after the insurance policy has been bound, they might use a drone or aerial imagery or actual inspector come into the home. They do inspect homes. So just keep that in perspective. So 20 years or older for homes, 40 years or older for condos. Okay, now for condos, the reason it's 40 years is any building 40 years or older without a 4-point inspection, no insurance company will take them except Citizens. So you definitely want to get these 4-point inspections for condos. And you also need to make sure it includes all 4 points, including the roof. A lot of inspectors leave the roof off because the roof is covered by the association. We know that, we understand that, but it's called a 4-point inspection because they have 4 points and they want all 4 points on the 4-point. So it's got to cover everything. So make sure with these condos, you should still be doing that scenario. Well, we'll talk about roofs in general. So I'm going to come up to that next, actually. So Kathy, thank you. Okay, now I want you to look at this 4-point inspection. Just so you know, there are 2 things that we look for. We look for those 4 items, okay? And I put them in that order because if you get a good 4-point inspection, you reap the reward and you can buy insurance. I also do a lot of first-time homebuyer classes, and I tell my first-time homebuyers, you can use this to negotiate the sales price with your realtor. You're not going to win every negotiation, but you certainly can try. So we'll kind of go through that with you guys so you understand how this operates. Okay, so your clients are getting some information if they're doing these first-time homebuyer classes. I do them with HUD, a lot of that scenario. Okay. Now, life expectancy is the other thing. So we want all these things to be in good condition or better, and we want the life expectancy. The life expectancy on the roof is the tricky one because it used to be 3 years. Now it's 5. 5 years is an absolute minimum on roofs. Now, when I do this class for first-time home buyers and I have them look at this and I say, look at the bottom line of the roof section. It says when a roof should be replaced, okay? Flat roofs 10 years, shingle 15, tile 20, and Kathy, metal is actually more than 20. I don't know what the number, there is no official number for metal. They haven't developed its own category yet, but it's definitely more than 20. It's more than tile. So they're still considered much better. However, the one negative, Kathy, to metal roofs in Florida is still the issue of older home, older roof, higher insurance price. So those metal roofs might last 50 years, but in 30, 40, 50 years, the price of insurance could be really high because of it. It won't be our problem, but it'll be somebody's problem. Yeah, we'll go through that. We'll go through that, Leonard, in that. So let's finish with the roof section. So it says 10 years for flat, 15 for shingle, tile for 20. Just so you know, in the northern part of the state, north of Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties, you get 5 more years in each category. So you do have 15, 20, and 25. So that you do get a little more room in the northern part of the state. However, the insurance companies don't like some of these things. So basically the insurance companies, when that flat roof is 10 years old, most insurance companies are probably still going to say no. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get insurance. It just means that you're probably going to have to go to Citizens Insurance, which is where you don't want to go. So these roofs now, also with roofs, you see these homes, these people put coatings on the roofs to make the roof last longer. That's not good. The insurance companies do not want coatings. If a roof is coated, it must be replaced. No insurance company wants a coated roof, period, end of story. Until Florida changes the laws in Florida, which is a Tallahassee thing, and they're not going to do it. David, just so you know, you were talking some Tallahassee stuff. One of the big ones for the insurance industry, and it should be for realtors too, is roofs. We're the only state in the country that still replaces your 40-year-old tile roof with a brand new roof. Why? It's 40 years old. Why should we replace it? But we've been doing it for decades. We're the only state in the country that does it. The only state. Every other state depreciates roofs when they're 10 years old. When Texas did this years ago, Texas insurance premiums pummeled down. They went down 30, 40%, just that one thing. Having roofs on depreciation schedule so they're not replaced, that would also eliminate a lot of insurance fraud because people who have 30 and 40-year-old roofs, a lot of them do intentional insurance fraud to get a free roof because they don't want to pay for it. It's just normal. In Florida, we are very fraudulent. Very, very fraudulent. It's a huge problem, and we're still the highest in the country for fraud in our state. No question about that. It is pretty bad. But think about these roof situation, okay? If you have and when I do my first-time home buyer classes, if I tell them, if a realtor takes you to a home with a 20-year-old shingle roof, do you want to go see this house, yes or no? And 98% of the time they say no. But I always tell them, don't say no, because could the roof still be in good condition? Of course. Could the roof still have 10 years of life expectancy? Of course. So you might want to still go see it. However, let's just say, for example, okay, Wanda, if the roof has 5 years of life, which is what we need. So that sounds pretty good. It means you're going to get to the closing table. But your buyer, if you have the buyer, is going to get a nasty letter 2 months after the closing that says, hey, Wanda, that insurance, the roof, it doesn't have 5 years of life anymore. It only has 4 years and 10 months. You need to replace the roof this year, or we're not going to renew your policy next year. So I always tell people, did you negotiate the new roof with the sellers? Because if that roof is 15, 20, 25 years old, you need to negotiate it, whether it's in great condition or not, because the buyer is going to have to replace it. And the insurance company will make them do it in some cases. It happens all the time, so be careful. All right. And we're going to come back to that citizens insurance thing that I was going into before, but I want to kind of go into this 4-point information. It's very critical. Okay. Now, obviously, if a roof has damage, you're not going to make it to the closing table. Sellers have to take care of that stuff, all the stuff you see there. Okay. Cracked shingles, missing tiles, rotting fascia board. So my suggestion to all of you is when you have a client and you get the wind mitigation 4-point inspection, send it to me. We'll review it very, very quickly. Unless I'm in a class like this, I'm going to see it very quickly. We'll review it, make sure there's no issues, and then we will go ahead and send you back some additional questions. And then our quotes are done in 1 business day. If there are any problems, we'll let you know what those problems are. So while your buyers are still on that 7 to 10 day free look, you want to make sure you get this inspection done quickly. So I always tell my first-time home buyers, if you make the offer on a Sunday and it's accepted, you better have that inspection done on Monday. If you start delaying it past the 1 day, it's already a big problem because you may run into a tight schedule. Now look at the electrical section, because that's also a big problem in Florida. On the bottom, I've given you the names of 5 different electrical panels, Federal Pacific, Challenger, Zinsco, Sylvania, and Stablock, that are all considered bad by the insurance industry. Some of you may have them in your homes on the inside panel, the outside panel. Homes have 1, 2, or 3 panels depending on the home, so they just have what they have, but you got to check the name brand. It's on the cover, the inside cover. If you have those names, these panels need to be replaced. Only one insurance company in the whole state of Florida accepts them, and that is Citizens Insurance. So if you send us a great wind mitigation 4-point inspection, but they have a Sylvania electrical panel, Citizens Insurance is all there is. It's going to be $3,000 to replace a panel. You should be negotiating that for your buyer. And then after they change the panel, we can also shop and change their insurance if they want to after the closing. We're happy to do things like that. But if you give us those electrical panels, nothing we can do. Not even Lloyd's of London will accept them. So you have to replace the panels, okay? Now, other issues that you see there happen with all panels, but those particular 5 brands tend to have the issues more than the others. Ampage issues, double taps, aluminum wiring, cloth wiring, improper grounding, etc. So that's there. Someone had a question there. Hold on, did I miss it? They're not going to require it. It's just basically, who is it? That's Phil. They're not going to require it. They're just going to basically tell you they don't want to, they may just non-renew your insurance policy because the roof is too old, or whatever happens. If they currently insuring you, they may do nothing. But if you're coming to them with a 30-year-old roof, they just don't want to insure you. They just don't want to. Now that could change over time. I don't know. There was a direct message here, so I'm going to send them in the group so I have it to everyone, but it's too much information. I don't know. There's too many things there. I can only go through. Let me go through this. And if you want to ask me at the end, we can kind of go through this stuff. It's about plumbing and New roof. Okay. So again, all the things are separate. So if you have one thing that's old, if you have an old roof and everything else is new, you still have a problem with your 4-point inspection. So it doesn't matter if one thing is good and the other thing is bad. They all count. So that's definitely for sure. But that's your electrical. Be careful because those issues need to be solved by sellers. So what I would advise for all of you taking listings is have your sellers do a 4-point inspection if they haven't done one in a couple of years, and have it done, and you can send it to me. I'll be happy to review it for you and your sellers. If it's good, you'd probably want to put that out on the dining room table when you have your open house. That way you can officially tell all the buyers, we're not negotiating on any of this stuff because these are the biggest items in the house. So it kills a lot of negotiations, which is good. Or if you have a bad 4-point inspection, you at least now can talk to your seller and know where you're going to need to negotiate when the time comes. Okay, now on the air conditioning and HVAC, you can see there on the second and third line. That's what I think Phil was asking. Air conditioners, 15 years, and water heaters no more than 10, unless they're tankless. Now, if an AC is 13 years old, yeah, some of the companies may take it, but a lot of the insurance companies just don't offer a quote. They just don't offer a quote. They will just say no, and we have to go to whatever companies are there that says yes, that may become Citizens Insurance. So the water heater is obviously an issue. It needs to be replaced. It's not too bad. The AC is a much bigger one. The water heater is not as terrible a scenario, but the air conditioners are. And they're also very expensive. They're $4,000 to $8,000 depending on the size and place of the AC units and how much of it you're doing even with the FPL rebates. So these are all things you should be negotiating because again, all of this stuff is going to put your clients into Citizens Insurance at a minimum to start off with. And we want to try to avoid that if we can, because getting a regular carrier is typically going to be so much better. Now, the last one is the plumbing. And you see in that second line, the word polybutylene, and I put the years 1979 to 1994. Up in the northern part of the state, that might go to 97. South Florida is 94, but you guys might go to 97, so you might just monitor that. But any home built in those years, you should be checking to make sure there's no poly pipes. Does everyone know what poly pipes are? Does anyone not know what they are? Anyone? Poly pipes?
Haven't-
You've
We
had
haven't seen a whole lot of them in our area.
You don't? You
There were
haven't?
some that existed, but they usually have a manifold system to them.
Okay, but if they have poly pipes, just so you know, if it's a community of homes and one home has it, every home in the community built by the same builder is probably going to have it, which means all these homes are problems. Basically, the insurance policy that we give for a polypipe home is not an HO3, which is a regular single-family home policy. We give the HO2 or HO8 or worse. It just depends on, or we go through surplus to get the HO2s or HO8s. It just depends on the carrier availability. The price of insurance is going to be double or triple the norm, and the policies are terrible. They have no water damage coverage because of the poly pipes. There's no replacement cost on the dwelling, so lenders have issues with them. There's no replacement cost on personal property. There's no building code coverage for ordinance and law. So basically the policies are terribly expensive, but also terribly covered. So it's a catch-22. Yes, that is the gray plumbing. So where do you look for the plumbing? Just so you know, Shad, when you go to the home, it's best to look by the water heater and the washer machine, but look under your sinks and more importantly, look into the crawl space of the attic. Because if it's up in the crawl space of the attic, then that's the real problem. That means it's behind the walls. When it's behind the walls, that's the real expensive version. It could be 20, 30, 40 grand to replace the plumbing or more. It just depends on the scenarios. So just be very, very careful with poly pipes. They are pretty much a disaster for anyone working with them. And the owners of the homes would love to get rid of them.
So Lee,
Yeah.
Your list doesn't have PEX on it, and PEX is the new gold standard
Right.
for plumbing pipes.
Right.
And some people could confuse them with the poly.
It could because they may be the same color or close, but the inspectors will know the difference. So that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're okay with the PEX. And even with the old what's the old plumbing from the 70s and the 60s?
Copper?
No, copper is newer, but I forget but anyways, that can be okay too with some carriers and or Citizens Insurance. So the older homes a lot of times end up in Citizens Insurance or through the Lloyd's of London marketplace because of the plumbing. every insurance company wants you to replace your plumbing once the home is like 30 years old. No owner I know wants to ever do that. But the plumbing needs to be replaced, and if they don't replace it, there's going to be complications. Yeah, if you have a polypipe home, you definitely need to list that for sure. Yeah, I was thinking galvanized, correct. Thank you, Mary. Galvanized plumbing, correct. That's the one I'm thinking of. And by the way, if you are working with buyers and sellers and you do have a flat roof home, always make sure there is attic access to get into the crawl space, because that wind mitigation inspection discounts, two of them are when the inspector can go into the crawl space of the attic. If they can't get in that crawl space because there is no access, the insurance policies are going to be much higher. So just understand that's how that works. So be very, very careful with that. Do you think anyone else have any questions on this 4-point inspection? I just wanted to make sure we covered this.
We can move on. We're running
Yeah.
out of time.
Okay,
so I
let me
don't know what
just go to
else.
Citizens Insurance, because that's important. So Citizens Insurance has lots of scenarios that you do have to go to it. If you look at this 4-point inspection, obviously it's going to be what it's going to be. Any of these issues can cause Citizens Insurance. Like I said, 2,600 square feet under air. But I want to give you guys an idea of how to quote your own home insurance, so you can have an idea of how much to charge someone for home insurance and what you can say to them. If you want to call me, I can certainly do this with you over the phone as well, or with your buyer, not a problem, to give a ballpark estimate. Obviously, we need everything to do the quotes, and the quotes take time, but for this, we can do it. So here's a little formula you can use. You take your square footage under air-conditioned living space, and you multiply it by approximately $225 a square foot. Okay. So let's say a home is 1,900 square feet total. It has a 1-car garage with a porch and or a patio, and it's about 1,500 square feet under air. That's the number we're talking about. So you take that number times the 225, and that's going to put you at like 350,000 or so. That's how much we insure a home for. That gives you an idea of how much we insure a home for. And it's a good formula to know, because a lot of insurance agents try to undercut you. So if the home should be insured for 350, the price is going to be based on 350 of coverage. Other insurance agents might want to insure for 275 because they want to bait you in with lowball quotes, because they know buyers, everyone likes the lowball pricing, but that's not the best situation, because it's not going to be real. The insurance companies are going to take care of that. So always know your square footage and get that number. So in this case, 1,500 square feet, approximately 350,000 of coverage. Price of insurance is probably going to fall anywhere from 0.5% to 1.5% in your areas, just depending on what area you're in. So, and also the age of the home. So newer construction homes are going to fall in that 0.5%, maybe a little more. So maybe 1,800 a year, 1,700 a year based on 350 of coverage. Whereas an older home might be 3,000-4,000 a year. It can be more, obviously, depending on what discounts they're getting or not getting. So that's critical on the wind mitigation inspection, which we really didn't go through. That's under air. It's under air, not total. We look at, they obviously rebuild the whole house in most cases. Citizens Insurance actually doesn't, but just so you know, Citizens Insurance doesn't cover things like porches, patios, screened enclosures, carports, awnings. None of that stuff is covered with Citizens. Other companies do or can cover it. So just depending on how you want to do that. So it's important to just have an idea of where the coverage should be, just to make sure your clients are doing that. But I can always ballpark that stuff with you guys or with your clients. That's not a problem. Flood insurance, I want to just go over flood. Just flood insurance. Let's go there real quick. If there's any other questions, we can go. We can always do this another time too. Flood insurance. August 1st or July 31st of last year, the flood maps changed. So basically, flood insurance rates have gone up, especially up in your part of the state. It is definitely significantly higher. So one thing you can do to help your clients, if they are in these required flood zones, the A zones, and a lot of Florida has been transitioned to these new Florida A zones. If the seller has a flood policy, you want to get a copy of it for your buyer. So basically, let's do a scenario. Let's say we have someone who has a flood quote and we gave it to him for $2,400. The seller has a flood policy for $1,500. If you can get the seller to give us a copy of their policy, your buyer can get the $1,500 price on flood through FEMA. The price will go up over the next 5 to 10 years to get to the 2,400 or whatever else goes on, but it starts off lower, making your closing a little bit easier. Also, just so you know, Citizens Insurance is going to be requiring flood insurance. So you should all know that. So this year in 2025, any home that has coverage of 500,000 or more in Citizens Insurance, even if it's in the X zones for flood, will still be required to have flood insurance. Next year in 2026, it will be 400,000 and above. And then in 2027, everyone in Citizens Insurance will have to carry flood. The only exceptions are going to be condos. Condos do not have to carry flood insurance unless the lender is requiring it. Now, with flood insurance, we recommend everyone take it. The last 3 or 4 hurricanes, everyone has seen tens of thousands of people have no coverage because they thought their policies covered hurricane whatever, and it doesn't because of the word seepage. Okay, now there's 2 words, tidal surge and seepage. So you remember, I think it was Ian, that was down by Naples where the water came in up to the 3rd story of condo buildings. That is storm surge. With the other storms, the water came in through the canal system, it crept up and it came in from underneath into the homes. That is called seepage. Seepage is a flood claim. A lot of people, when they get water in their home, call their home insurance company to say, I have a water damage claim, when in actuality, it's seepage. That's a problem because your home insurance company will record that claim on record and just say no money paid out, but it's still now you have a claim on record. And then, of course, you have no flood insurance, so now you have no coverage. So flood insurance is critically important. I can't emphasize that enough. And the one last thing I really want to say here, and I'm going to put it out here. Spell it. I can't ask this enough. Claims, 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 claims. Everyone has claims. We have to know about the claims. No one likes to provide information about claims. For every 100 people we ask to provide us information on claims, 90 of them say they don't have claims. But in reality, 70 of them do. Now, they may not remember, but we have to have claim information because it will affect your buyers. Okay, and we have to know on any property they've owned in the last 5 years. So if they're selling a home in New York and they're moving here, or Illinois or whatever, we have to have their claim information on the house that up there, any other properties they own, and you have to ask the sellers. So if you're listing a home, sellers need to fully disclose any claims in the last 5 years. Buyers, you want to make sure you ask them to disclose claims, 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 because it's so important to have claim information out there. If you don't tell us, what's going to happen is when we go to bind the policy, we give you a quote, we don't know about the claim. And then basically we go to bind the coverage. When we bind the coverage, the insurance company always pulls what's called a clue report. The clue report has a clue. It knows everything. With some companies, it will change the premium. It can deny a policy being issued, and it can certainly cause and raise more questions. So every company is different. Citizens Insurance, they're going to want full explanations, paid receipts, proof of the damage. And now here you are trying to close in 3 days, and we're asking you for all of this information. And it is 5 years. Yes, Scott, thank you. I did answer that. 5 years is what we're looking for. Some companies go more, but most are 5 years. Okay, so it's real important. Claims, get all of that information. No, commercial is totally different. Totally different. And David mentioned before about a lot of the policies are going ACV instead of replacement. That is true on commercial. It's true of residential too. The problem we have in Florida, like I said, is that roof problem. We still have full roof replacement. So the insurance companies are now doing ACV roofs as well in some cases, not all of them. Some of them are doing it. So basically, if you have a policy and the insurance company doesn't really want your home because the roof is too old, the underwriter may come back to us and say, we'll only offer it with ACV roof at this price and whatever that price is. So they are doing that in some cases. So that can pop up. So the more you can do to get your clients to avoid Citizens Insurance, get into regular carriers is a good thing. And the one last thing I'll tell you, unless we have more time or questions, David, is water damage. The worst claim we have in our state is water damage, plumbing issues. Okay. Dishwashers, washing machines, air conditioners, kitchens, bathrooms, the whole deal. Okay. Water, the poly pipes was the start of it. And now it's through the roof. One of the other problems we're seeing in Florida, it's happening with this depopulation program, is people are getting limited water damage coverage. So that's important. The price of the insurance policy is cheaper because of it. That's a nice thing. But in a claim, it's only 10,000 of coverage for water damage. If any of you have ever had a water damage claim, and I've had two, they're usually 20 to 100,000. It's the one I had one at 20 and I had one at 70. So they're just, when they come and they're bad. You want to not have limited water damage coverage. Sometimes you have no choice. We'll always discuss those options with you. But a lot of you may have on your current policies limited water damage. So just be careful because it's not a good situation. And keep this in mind too, because we're going to be going into hurricane season soon. As the storms come, sometimes there's not a tropical storm or a hurricane. I live in a townhome community here in Broward County. And basically, last September, October, it was a storm, but it wasn't a tropical storm or hurricane. And two people in here had water coming in through the roof. The water that came in, there was no damage to the roof. In both cases, the roof was just deteriorating. In both cases, they had no coverage because it was flood. That's called seepage. Water got in, there's no damage. So it's just important. These things, they just get so crazy that the claims happen. Phil has a question, property in Michigan buying home in Florida. Yes, if there was a claim in that Michigan home 4 years ago, we need to know about it. We'll need to have full details. The insurance, they're not going to ask for just the month and year, the type, was it water, was it hurricane, was it fire, what was it? And the amount that the insurance company paid out, was it 5,000 or 50,000? Those are the things they're going to want to know. The very basics. We'll ask those questions of you, but they will want to know it. Yeah, they want to know everything. And if you don't tell them, like I said, they can find out, and a company might decline you because of it. So now, one last thing on this whole carrier issue. You might be calling multiple insurance agents to get multiple quotes from different agents, which is always okay to do. However, always remember this: same company, same price. So if you're getting quotes from Edison Insurance, American Integrity, Florida Peninsula, TipTap, Citizens Insurance, whoever the companies are, these new companies, Orange or whatever, all these companies, same company, same price. No agent gets a better price with an insurance company than another agent. So if we quote you a company and it's 3,500 and another agent quotes you the same company for 3,000, trust me, something is wrong. And 90% of the time, the price that's cheaper is usually the one that's wrong. And the insurance company won't let it happen. It'll just come back. The insurance agent does what's called bait and switch. They bait you in and then they come back and say, oh, I'm so sorry, the rates went up, I couldn't help it, the company did this. No, that's just what they knew was going to happen, and they baited you in because they know you look for the cheapest prices, and then it comes back. It's the same thing. So same company, same price. Liz?
Lee,
Yeah.
we are out of time,
Okay.
but your the 4-point flyer that you have up, I do have, and I
Okay, good.
will send to Karen. We will post that on our resource